Welcome to section 3. In this section, we're going to cover how to set up your hacking lab so you can get started actually practicing your hacking. So some of the things that we're going to cover in this particular section is really going to allow you to get the understanding of how exactly we go about hacking into different systems, how exactly the black hats actually work when they're looking to gain access or to do something that is malicious, right? Some sort of malicious attack. And so what we're always looking to do is step into the mindset of the black hat individual. How are they thinking? What are they perceiving? How are they going about their plan of attack? And so with us setting up a hacking lab, we're going to be able to step into exactly how a black hat individual would be looking to gain access or provide some type of attack on a network. So let's go right ahead and jump in here. So in section 3, just like I mentioned, what we're going to be doing here is learning how to set up our own hacking lab so that we can work through our desktop computer, our laptop, or whatever device that you have. Most likely you want to have some sort of laptop or some sort of desktop computer. You don't really want to set this up through like some type of mobile device or some sort of tablet. You want to make sure that you have an actual computer, right? Either desktop or laptop to work with this type of lab. So the first thing that we're going to be covering here is what exactly are virtual machines and what are the recommended hardware specs to run them on your actual machine. So virtual machines is something that we're going to dive in deep into. I want you to really get an understanding of how we're going to use them in our hacking lab and why they are so important and essential when we're actually doing our hacking. And then we're going to also learn how to download and install Kali Linux into our virtual machine so we can use this for hacking. This is very, very important as well. Kali Linux is essentially a must for us when we're setting up our hacking lab so that we can do a lot of the different commands. We can get access to a bunch of different files and do a bunch of other stuff that we're going to walk through in this section. And then also, you're going to learn how and where to download and install vulnerable virtual machines to hack. So we're going to walk through quite a bit here. And what I really want to get into now is what exactly is a hacking lab. So to give you an overview here, a hacking lab is a network that you create that lets you practice your skills in a controlled environment. What you're really doing here is you're looking to reduce the risk that actually come from actually hacking, real systems, right? Real networks. If you look at the image to the right, you see that there's an individual. He's practicing chemistry. He's in his lab working with different formulas and whatnot. That's exactly what we're going to be doing, right? However, we're going to be using different programs, different scripting languages, Kali Linux, right? And then different components and strategies within our hacking lab. So what essentially a virtual lab allows you to do is it allows you to practice pretty much any time that you want, right? 24/7. And you don't have to put your data in danger of getting wiped out or you're getting some sort of virus or malware infection, right? Because that's one of the biggest things that you want to keep in mind when you're doing your hacking and you're looking to practice, right? Stepping into the mind of the black hatter, you want to make sure that you're always protected and your information and identity is always protected, right? And so you're also saved from legal troubles that may result from testing on a real website that you perhaps do not own, and you may be a little bit curious. You may be stepping into the gray hat area where you're curious about something. I would recommend that you don't get into that type of area where, even though you're not looking to cause any kind of malicious harm, that you just make sure you're staying on the white hat side of things so that you can remain protected and you're not crossing over any lines. And then also, obviously, you get the freedom to be able to experiment and tweak around within your own lab, right? You don't have to worry about using somebody else's tools, somebody else's VPNs or virtual private machines. Everything is going to be on your computer for you to be able to play with. And so when we're talking about virtual machines, virtual private networks, all these different things that have the virtual, right, in the very beginning, and all these different types of mechanisms and systems that are quote unquote virtual, what exactly does this mean? Well, what this all really comes down to is the concept of virtualization. And according to VMware, which I believe they were one of the first companies that actually started the virtualization industry. And according to them, virtualization is a process of creating a software-based or virtual representation of something such as a virtual application, server, storage, and or networks, right? Look at the right-hand side here, this image. So what you have is you have a client. You have, let's say, a computer, and then you have, let's say, a program, a virtual desktop like Kali Linux or maybe some other type of application. And then you have servers. And so what this is allowing you to do, let's say you have one server, and let's say you have 10 gigs, okay? This is just a simple example here. If you got one server with 10 gigs, and typically, for the most part, without virtualization, you can only have one operating system on there. Let's say Microsoft Server or whatever kind of server software, maybe Linux or whatever that may be, right, on that one server. If you have virtualization, you can actually break down that 10 gig of space and break it down into, let's say, 4 different groups or 3 different groups. And let's say if you had 3, you can break it down 3.5, 3.5, and 3.5, right? As far as space, and then be able to install, let's say, Microsoft Enterprise, Microsoft Server on one of the 3.5s as far as the operating system. And let's say on the other 3.5 gigs of space, you want to maybe install Linux. And then on the other 3.5 gigs of space, maybe you want to install another software, maybe Microsoft Windows or whatever that may be, right? I'm just trying to give you an example here. So what you've done with virtualization is instead of only being able to install, let's say, Linux into that one 10 gig server, you're now able to have 3 different types of operating systems on that server through the power of virtualization, right? So virtualization relies on software to simulate hardware functionality and create a virtual computer system, right? Just like I mentioned, those 3.5 gigs of space are all broken down to simulate hardware functionality. And so you have 3 different operating systems on that one server through that virtualization. And just like I mentioned, this allows the ability to run more than one virtual system and multiple operating systems and applications on a single server. And so this is really something that a lot of organizations, a lot of companies out there use to increase their efficiency, increase their ability to use more of their system storage, and just greater overall functionality. And so for us, we're able to also utilize this to our advantage and have different types of virtual machines, networks and machines on one device, when in reality, we only have one computer. However, within that computer or that laptop, whatever device we're using, we're able to go undetected, and we're able to use several different operating systems and applications within that one machine. So very, very powerful. I really wanted you to get an understanding here of what virtualization is and how important of a concept it is for you to understand as an ethical hacker. In the next following lectures, Anthony's going to walk you through a little bit more in-depth explanation and overview of what exactly virtual machines are and how we're going to use them to our advantage in our hacking lab, and then also how to install Kali Linux so you can get started working with your actual hacking lab. So that's going to be it here for this one, and we'll see you on the next one.